Right. So in the previous tutorial, we have added the functionality to snap in between multiple different camera state. So if I show you what we currently have, so we can like snap in between the medium camera and close-up camera states, right? But as I mentioned before, instead of directly snapping in between multiple different camera states, let's smoothen this out, right? So the transition would be much more smoother. Okay. So in order to smoothen this thing, we can go to player camera manager's camera state, and at the update spring arm length function, actually it's an event. Let's add a timeline. So at timeline, and I'll call this one as em underscore spring arm length. Okay, and let's go inside that timeline, and I'll add a track. Yep, I'll add a track which is a float track, right? So this one, what basically does, you can add certain points, or like you can make sort of a curve, and ideally it should return a value given by this name, as it should be like a float value written over the time when this timeline is being played. So I'll call this one as alpha, and actually there are multiple different ways you can make a curve. Either you can plot your curve here, or you can create your curve in a different location and fetch it to here as an external curve, right? So I would recommend to follow up the second option, because let's say later on when you need to change the curve, instead of manually manipulating those control points at the timeline, instead you can simply create a new version of the curve and plug it to here, right? So it would be much more modular and maintainable, right? So I'll go to the camera directory, and I'll create a new folder called curves, and I'll save the packages as well, because I think I haven't saved it. Right, so inside the curves folder, let's create a curve. So there should be a, yeah, there is a miscellaneous called curve. Let's use that thing. And what I'm interested in, this one, the curve float, right? And I'll rename this one as cf underscore let's say generic camera curve, right? Now you can see like it's sort of a graph where you can plot, right? So there I'll add a new key, and by default it goes to 0 location, and then I'll add another key. This should go to 1 by 1, right? So which means like within a second the alpha return value should be 1, right? So I'll leave it like this. Okay. So this one is sort of like a steep curve, right? Instead of that, let's sort of smoothen this out. So to do that, let's select these 2 points and right click, and as the shape of the curve, instead of having a linear, let's make it as auto. Okay. So you can see like it automatically gives this nice curve, which has sort of like a smoothen gain, right? So there is a increasing order gain and there is a decreasing order gain, right? So whenever you make your camera transition, first it will zoom in sort of like a increase the speed, then it will slowly smoothen out by this slow uh, increase of the values, right? Hope you get the idea. Then let's go to the camera manager, and as the external curve of our TM spring arm length timeline, I'll plug that CF generic camera curve. Then you can see automatically it plot like this. So you can click these two values to zoom fit the curve to this graph. So you can see like now you can't add anything, or it's sort of like a static chart or static visualization of your timeline, because we are using a external curve, right? uh, let's say in case if you need to manipulate your curve, then you have to simply go to your external curve and do those stuff at here, right? So it's much more modular. Then since we have this curve, let's go back to the set camera state function, update spring arm length event. So here instead of playing it like this, we can play it from start, I guess, because let's say in case if we stop the timeline at the middle of the execution, and then whenever we try to continue it back, it would continue from that position onwards. But instead, if we play it from the start, then even if we stop in middle, for each execution it will start from the initial point onwards, right? Which I did what we want. And now whenever it's updating the curve transitions over time, as the alpha will increase from 0 to 1, right? So we can sort of linearly interpolate in between multiple different target arm lengths, right? Ideally what we need is the linear interpolation in between start target arm length to a specific target value, right? So in order to get that, what I can do is I can get the spring reference, and let's get the existing target arm length, and let's lerp in between the provided target arm length at here. Target yeah, since this is the event, actually we can't call it like this. Let's simply plug it to here. So these are the two values that should be linearly interpolated, and the alpha should be this one, right? And the final return value should update the target arm length over time, right? Okay. Right, now let's play test it and see. Okay, now you can see actually we have a very smooth camera transition, right? It's not snap directly to that specific state. Instead, like it slowly moves towards the new state, right? Which is ideally what you wanted. Additionally, what we can do is we can sort of control the play rate of this linear interpolation. For instance, like currently within a second this linear interpolation works because the curve length is only 1 second, right? So you can see the time is 1 and the alpha will goes to 1, right? But let's say there can be certain instances where we need to sort of like delay this transition, right? Maybe like let's say these transitions should go up until 3 seconds, right? Or maybe there can be instances where we need to speed this transition. Let's say within a fraction of second it should transit to a different state, right? So there are multiple ways you can handle this situation. Either you can have multiple different curves, but then the obvious issue is like based on each time variation that you want, you have to create your curve one by one, which I don't think would be quite nice or quite practical enough. And the second option that you have is basically control the play rate of the timeline, right? And I think that approach would be much better. So let's go to the camera manager, and here before playing from the start I'll get the camera, not this one, I'll get the TM camera spring arm reference and set its play rate like this and play from start. And as the new rate, let's parameterize it, and I'll call this one as play rate, right? And if you check the default values, actually the play rate is 0, which is not quite good, right? Because it will be instantaneous transition then. So as the default parameter value, I'll give it as 1, right? So whenever we call this function, the default play rate value will be considered as 1 in case if we haven't configured this one manually, right? But anyway, since we configured the default value as 1 at here, if you go and check out this set camera state function, you can see the parameter already taken as 1, right? So now let's make a transition. So you can see the play rate is somewhat default, and let's say if I need to slow it down, so all I have to do is like increase the play rate. Sorry, it's the other way around. I have to reduce the play rate, let's say 0.2. Now you can see the transition take quite a long time, and if I increase the play rate maybe like 5, you can see the transition is instantaneous, right? Okay, but I think by default 1 would be fine. I just wanted to show you like we have the capabilities like that, so whenever it requires we can use this stuff. Yep, plus I think maybe, I'm not quite sure, but maybe we can add this to the data structure level. So and under the S camera settings, maybe I'll add a field called play rate, right? Should the type of float, and by default the value should be 1, and I'll add a tooltip as well. Let's say lower play rate causes longer transitions, and higher play rates cause, or let's say results into quick transitions. Right. So whenever I need to tweak this value, it now visualize on the data table, right? And by default it's 1, which should be fine. And let's use that play rate here. Okay. Right. Now let's try to manipulate from here. So the default play rate is 1, which is fine. And maybe let's say it's 0.2. And now you can see it takes some time. It's not instantaneous as it used to. Right. So by default I'll keep it as 1, which is ideally what we want. Okay. But I'm not quite sure like this would be the best approach, right? Because the play rate is in between two different states. But yeah, I just add that to the data table as well. Let's say in case if we see some issues later on, we can either remove this one as well. Anyway, it would be fine. Okay, so I think that's what I wanted to cover in this session. So I'll see you there. Thank you.